Recent Supreme Court rulings have ended affirmative action and are looking to end legacy admissions, making applying to colleges somewhat confusing. Chris Stewart with Scripps News spoke with a recent college advisor on admissions and has more on how to navigate the process.
It could be one of the most impactful moments of your life. The moment your application reaches the desk of an admissions officer at a college or university, maybe your dream school, and they make the decision whether you're in or you're not. So what does that decision process now look like with the Supreme Court banning affirmative action and some colleges ending legacy admissions? We're pulling back the curtain by talking to someone who knows firsthand.
Seconds.
As a former Dartmouth admissions officer, Michelle Hernandez knows what works on a college application.
Focus on one thing and go in depth. That's like the best hack I could say, is that be really amazing at something, whatever that something is.
She was a gatekeeper to one of the most selective schools in the country. Dartmouth lets just 6% of applicants in. Today she says she was part of a system that's flawed.
Sometimes it's subconscious, like, oh, that letter seems lukewarm, but maybe it was just that person didn't know how to write a recommendation letter and the student was great. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of talented kids that they missed.
She says as America reacts to the Supreme Court's decision to ban affirmative action, it's important to recognize the other hooks that are valued just as much by elite colleges that don't directly have to do with grades or SAT scores.
The orchestra is going to need a certain number of musicians. The dance department is going to need a certain number of dancers. So they're always looking for different things anyway.
She says as many as half of the spots in a class can be reserved for kids who fit certain criteria. She says in her experience, roughly 10% of spots could be reserved for students of color. But even more could be saved for students whose parents were alumni, known as legacies, with an even larger group being saved for students recruited to play sports. Hernandez says those other hooks beyond race are often not filled with minority students.
Going to an Ivy League school sets you on a better path, but why is that advantage only reserved for, wealthy white kids?
The U.S. Department of Education is currently investigating Harvard's acceptance of legacy students, looking into whether it violates the Federal Civil Rights Act. Two prestigious liberal arts colleges, Wesleyan in Connecticut and Occidental in California, announced they will no longer consider legacies.
I think the quick ways to make it fair would be get rid of legacy admissions, pay attention to income, and really make a commitment to giving full financial aid to anyone, let's say, who makes under $200,000.
Along with doing more to evaluate a student's socioeconomic background, Hernandez says prestigious schools need to change their recruiting tactics when it comes to diversity.
As an admissions officer, I visited high schools. The whole fall is visiting high schools. I usually visited a lot of private schools and prep schools. You could visit a lot more inner city schools and tell these kids, hey, you do have a chance to get in. Here's what we're looking for. Here's what you need to do.
Today, Michelle runs college prep company Top Tier Admissions, which tutors students to get on the right track to one day apply to the kind of institution she once worked at. Insight that parents are willing to pay tens of thousands of dollars for.
Not everyone deserves to go to the hardest school in the country to get into, but they deserve to go to college, and we can at least make it more equitable and try to open up the pathways for them to get there. And that's kind of the American dream in a nutshell.
A dream, she says, is as much about grades as it is knowing how to navigate a system that isn't always fair. Chris Stewart, Scripps News.